My fiancé said, "I don't want a prenup. It feels like you don't have faith in me." I responded, "You're right. That was inconsiderate of me." Then I secretly recorded her late-night call where she planned to marry and then divorce me. That recording is set to be played at the rehearsal dinner. I'm 36 and about to pull off the most incredible wedding rehearsal ever. My gold-digging fiancé thinks she's marrying into wealth tomorrow, but she's actually walking into a major public revelation. I've been with Madison for 2 years, engaged for 8 months. She's 29, working part-time at a boutique, and comes from a family that has always faced financial struggles. I'm a software engineer with a successful tech firm. I earn a good income, have a nice home, and enjoy a comfortable lifestyle, but I'm not extremely wealthy. Madison was aware of my financial situation from the beginning of our relationship. I was honest because I learned from previous relationships that being clear about finances helps avoid future issues. Initially, she seemed to handle it well. She never asked for pricey gifts or pushed for luxury vacations. She appeared to genuinely care for me as a person, and not just my financial status. However, that changed about 6 months ago when we got engaged. Suddenly, Madison became very focused on wedding planning details that involved spending. The venue had to be flawless. The catering needed to be unforgettable. Everything required professional touches. Every discussion somehow revolved around rising costs. When I suggested we set a reasonable budget, she'd get emotional, saying I was ruining her dream wedding and not valuing our love properly. I noticed some red flags, but I dismissed them as normal wedding stress. The bigger red flag appeared 3 months ago when my lawyer recommended we talk about a prenuptial agreement. I casually brought it up during dinner. My lawyer thinks we should consider a prenup, just standard measures to safeguard both of our interests. Madison's reaction was immediate and dramatic. "A prenup? Are you serious? That's basically preparing for divorce before we're even married. It's just a precaution. It helps clarify financial arrangements if anything goes wrong. What do I have that needs protecting? This is about your money and your lack of trust in me." She started crying, saying the prenup request made her feel like I didn't believe in our relationship or think she truly loved me. "I don't want a prenup. It feels like you don't trust me. Like you think I'm only marrying you for your money." I felt guilty for even mentioning it. "You're right. That was inconsiderate of me. I trust you completely. Forget about the prenup." She seemed relieved, and we never discussed it again. But something about her reaction troubled me. The emotion felt rehearsed, like she had anticipated this conversation and prepared her response. 2 weeks ago, my doubts were confirmed in the worst way possible. I was working late in my home office when Madison returned from what she claimed was dinner with her sister. She went straight to the bedroom and closed the door, which was unusual. About 30 minutes later, I overheard her talking on the phone. Her voice was loud enough to carry through the house, and I could hear her clearly. I approached the bedroom to see if she wanted tea, and stopped when I heard what she was saying. "The wedding is in 2 weeks, and then the real work begins. You were right about the prenup. Crying totally worked. Once we're married, I can start documenting everything for the divorce. He makes a good income, and the house alone is worth $800,000. I stood in the hallway listening to Madison outline my financial ruin with whoever was on the other end of that call. She was discussing plans for divorce, how to document emotional neglect and incompatibility, and laughing about how easy it had been to manipulate me into dropping the prenup conversation. The most damaging part was when she said, "I can't stand another year pretending to find him interesting." But the lawyer said, "I need at least 12 months of marriage to get decent alimony and part of the house value." I quietly returned to my office, processing what I just heard. My fiancé of 8 months was planning to marry me, endure 1 year of a fake marriage, then divorce me for alimony and a share of my assets. But instead of confronting her right away, I decided to gather evidence. Over the next week, I noticed a pattern. Every few nights, Madison would have these private calls in the bedroom with the door shut. Last Friday night, Madison had another of her planning calls. This time, I was ready. I positioned myself in the hallway outside the bedroom where I could clearly hear both sides of the conversation. Since I was in my own home and could naturally overhear, I legally recorded the audio on my phone. The recording I got was even more damning than the first conversation I'd overheard. Madison was speaking to her sister, Lisa, discussing specific divorce tactics. "The wedding is next Saturday, and everything is going according to plan. No prenup, so I'll have claims to marital property. Lisa, You were right that the crying worked perfectly. He felt so guilty for bringing up the prenup that he completely dropped it. My lawyer says if I can document that he's emotionally distant or we're incompatible, I can file for divorce after a year and get temporary alimony while we divide assets. The house has equity. His business has value. Plus, he makes 6 figures. Even if I only get a portion, it's more than I'd see in 10 years at the boutique. I just have to be the perfect wife for 1 year. Document any issues, then file citing irreconcilable differences. He's so trusting and naive. He thinks because I don't ask for expensive things, that means I'm not interested in his money. I recorded 23 minutes of audio detailing her complete plan to marry me under false pretenses, then divorce me for financial gain. I saved multiple copies of the recording and spent the weekend figuring out how to proceed. Option 1 was to confront Madison privately and call off the wedding, but that felt insufficient and wouldn't protect other men from her schemes. Option 2 was to expose her publicly in a way that would ensure everyone knew exactly what kind of person she was. I opted for option 2. The rehearsal dinner is tomorrow night. Madison's family, my family, the wedding party, and close friends, about 40 people total, will be there. I've prepared a presentation for the dinner speeches. Instead of giving a traditional toast about how much I love my bride-to-be, I'm going to play Madison's recorded conversation for everyone to hear. I wanted to share something that truly reflects Madison's feelings about our upcoming marriage. Then I'll play the 23-minute audio of her detailing her plan to marry me for money, pretend to be a loving wife for 1 year, and then divorce me for alimony and assets. After the recording finishes, I'll announce that the wedding is canceled and that Madison has exactly 48 hours to remove her belongings from my home. Madison has no idea what's coming. She's been acting like the excited bride-to-be all week, talking about how perfect our wedding will be. Tomorrow night, she'll learn that some people aren't as gullible as they seem, and that planning fraud has consequences. Update 1. 2 days later. 2 days since the rehearsal dinner, and I'm still receiving calls from people saying it was the most dramatic event they've ever seen. Madison's marriage fraud scheme got revealed in the most public way possible. Friday evening started normally. Madison spent the day preparing for what she thought would be her triumphant rehearsal dinner. She looked stunning and acted like the perfect excited bride. The dinner was held in a private dining room at an upscale restaurant. Both families, the wedding party, and close friends were there. Everyone was in high spirits, expecting a celebration. Madison's sister, Lisa, appeared nervous during dinner, which now makes perfect sense. She had been helping plan the fraud scheme. The speeches began around 8 p.m. Madison's maid of honor went first with a sweet story about their friendship. My best man shared a funny memory from our college days. Then it was my turn as the groom. I stood up with my phone and a portable speaker I had brought. Thank you all for being here tonight. Before we celebrate tomorrow's wedding, I want to share something that truly reflects Madison's feelings about our marriage. Madison looked confused but was smiling, likely thinking I was going to play a romantic message. This is a conversation I recorded legally in my own home last Friday night between Madison and her sister Lisa. I pressed play and Madison's voice filled the room. The wedding is next Saturday, and everything is going according to plan. No prenup, so I'll have claims to marital property. Madison's face went pale. She lunged for my phone, but I moved it away. The recording continued with her discussing the prenup manipulation, her plan to fake being a loving wife for 1 year, and then document issues to justify divorce. The room fell silent, except for Madison and Lisa's voices plotting my financial downfall. When the recording reached the part about her not being able to stand pretending to find him interesting, several people gasped. Lisa looked like she wanted to disappear. My parents stared at Madison in shock. After playing the most damaging excerpts for about 8 minutes, I stopped the recording. The wedding tomorrow is canceled. Madison, you have 48 hours to remove your belongings from my home. That's when chaos erupted. Madison began screaming that the recording was fake, that I'd somehow fabricated it, that this was all a misunderstanding. You recorded me without my consent. That's an invasion of privacy. Actually, it's completely legal since I recorded it in my own home from a common area where I could naturally hear the conversation. Lisa tried to leave, but several people blocked her path, demanding she explain her role in the scheme. Madison's father stood up and demanded answers. Madison, tell me right now, is this true? Have you been planning to divorce him for money? Dad, he's lying. This is all fake. But you could hear the panic in her voice. The recording clearly showed her and Lisa discussing specific details. My brother asked the question everyone was thinking. Madison, why would he make this up? What would be the point of faking something so detailed? Madison couldn't respond. She kept insisting the recording was fabricated, but she couldn't explain how or why. Several guests began to leave. The atmosphere was too uncomfortable. Madison's parents left with her, but not before her father apologized to my family for the deception. My family stayed to help me process what had just happened. Saturday morning, Madison showed up at my house with Lisa, demanding to talk. Last night was humiliating. How could you do that to me in front of everyone? How could you plan to defraud me while pretending to love me? That recording doesn't prove anything. I was just venting about wedding stress. Wedding stress made you discuss divorce strategies and document issues for court. She had no response to that. Lisa finally spoke up. Maybe we got carried away discussing hypothetical situations. It wasn't a real plan. Hypothetical? You discussed specific legal strategies and timelines. Your sister consulted a lawyer. Madison packed her things Saturday afternoon. She kept claiming that I misunderstood everything and took the conversation out of context, but she never directly denied planning the marriage fraud. She just insisted the recording didn't mean what it obviously indicated. Sunday, I started receiving calls from friends asking for the full story. Word was spreading about the canceled wedding and the shocking recording. The truth speaks for itself. Madison's own words condemned her more effectively than anything I could have said. Update 2. 3 weeks later. 3 weeks since the rehearsal dinner exposed, and the aftermath has been everything I hoped for. Madison's reputation as a marriage fraud schemer is now permanently established. The immediate fallout was severe for Madison's family. Several people at the dinner were part of their social network, and news spread quickly about what had been revealed. Madison spent the first week attempting damage control, claiming the recording was taken out of context or that she'd been joking about divorce planning. But the recording was too detailed and specific. Her discussion of legal strategies, timeline planning, and consultation with a lawyer couldn't be dismissed as casual conversation. Her sister Lisa also became a social outcast. Several people recognized that she had been actively involved in planning the fraud scheme, not just listening to Madison vent. Madison's parents called me 10 days after the dinner, asking if there was any way to resolve the situation quietly. There's nothing to resolve. Madison planned marriage fraud, and I revealed her scheme before she could carry it out. She made poor choices, but she's young and made mistakes. Couldn't you have handled this privately? She spent 2 years deceiving me while planning to steal my assets through fraudulent marriage. This needed to be public so other men know what she's capable of. What about her reputation, her future relationships? You've ruined her credibility. I've exposed her true character. She destroyed her own credibility by planning fraud. Madison tried to reach out through mutual friends, asking if I'd consider meeting to explain the misunderstanding. I declined. There was no misunderstanding. The recording was clear evidence of her intentions and her sister's involvement. 2 weeks ago, I heard she had moved back in with her parents. Her part-time boutique job wasn't enough to afford independent living, especially without the financial windfall she had been planning to gain through marriage fraud. The most satisfying part has been how this affected her future dating prospects. Madison's scheme wasn't just about me. It was a template for targeting financially stable men. Now, everyone in our community knows exactly what she's capable of when she thinks no one is listening. Several men have mentioned that they've heard about the recording and are being more cautious about women who seem overly interested in their financial situations. Last week, I heard she tried to start dating again, but was struggling. News travels fast in smaller communities, and most potential partners eventually hear about the marriage fraud scheme. Madison's former maid of honor reached out to thank me for revealing the truth. I always thought something seemed off about how she talked about your relationship, but I couldn't pinpoint what bothered me. The recording made everything clear. What seemed off? She never talked about you the way someone in love talks about their partner. It was always about the wedding, the house, future plans. Never about you as a person or your relationship dynamics. I should have recognized those signs earlier. She's skilled at manipulation. She had most people fooled, including her closest friends. Final update. 2 months later. 2 months since I canceled my wedding, and this story has reached its natural conclusion. Madison learned that marriage fraud schemes only succeed when your victim remains unaware. The recording became a cautionary tale in our social circle about the importance of trusting your instincts and protecting yourself legally in relationships. Madison's reputation never recovered. The detailed nature of her planning and her sister's involvement made it impossible to claim innocence or misunderstanding. 6 weeks ago, she supposedly consulted a lawyer about suing me for invasion of privacy. Her lawyer quickly advised against it when they realized the recording was completely legal and documented her own planned fraud. A month ago, she relocated to a different city to start fresh. Probably wise since everyone locally knew about the marriage fraud scheme. 3 weeks ago, I started dating someone new. She knows the whole story, and her reaction was perfect. Anyone who would spend 2 years planning marriage fraud while pretending to be in love is exactly why prenups exist. This new relationship is built on genuine compatibility and honesty. No manipulation, no hidden financial agendas, no wondering if I'm being deceived about fundamental aspects of the relationship. Last week, Madison sent a text from her new city. I hope you're satisfied. You destroyed my life over private conversations. I didn't respond. There was nothing private about planning fraud, and she ruined her own life by choosing deception over honesty. The rehearsal dinner recording wasn't revenge. It was protection. Madison had spent 2 years building toward marriage fraud and deserved to face public consequences. Her scheme wasn't just about taking from me. It was a blueprint she planned to use if this marriage didn't work out or if she found better targets. Madison learned that fraud requires the victim to remain unaware. Once the truth gets exposed publicly, the scheme becomes impossible to execute. She also learned that some people pay attention to inconsistencies and trust their instincts when something feels wrong. The prenup conversation was the real revelation. Her manipulative response confirmed my suspicions and made me start looking for evidence. Her emotional performance wasn't about trust or love. It was about maintaining access to my assets for her planned fraud. The recording just documented what I had begun to suspect, that Madison was executing a long-term financial con with marriage as the vehicle. Everyone got exactly what their choices earned them. Madison chose to plan marriage fraud while pretending to be in love. She got publicly exposed and had to relocate with a damaged reputation. Lisa chose to help plan the fraud scheme. She got exposed as an accomplice and lost credibility in her social circle. I chose to gather evidence before making decisions. I gained clarity about who I was truly engaged to and avoided the biggest mistake of my life. The rehearsal dinner guests witnessed the most dramatic example of justice most of them will ever see in person. Sometimes the best protection against fraud is simply playing the fraudster's own words back to them in front of the people they're trying to deceive. Madison's voice explaining her scheme to her sister was more damaging than any accusation I could have made. She condemned herself with her own honesty when she thought only her accomplice was listening. The wedding was canceled, but the education was invaluable. For everyone who heard that recording, marriage fraud became a real threat they'd never ignore again. Madison wanted a year of a fake marriage followed by a profitable divorce. Instead, she got permanent damage to her reputation and had to start over in a new city. The most expensive lesson she'll ever learn. Always assume someone might be listening when you're planning to commit fraud.